Well, welcome to MobileMonday on a Wednesday. How many folks went to programmatic this week? Awesome. Okay, cool. So tonight's event is kind of tied to the conference. We wanted to focus on an ad tech theme for this week. Tonight, we're going to talk about programmatic, monetization, paywalls. I mean, how many people have gone to a publisher's website that automatically get the, hey, you got to pay, or how many people here use adblockers? How many people work in ad tech and use adblockers? All right. So yeah. So that's, I mean, it's an interesting, I think, change in the industry, and I think we're coming upon where consumers are a little bit more sophisticated, and they definitely want a better ad experience, I would say, right? And so, I mean, we did an ad blocking topic a couple of years back. I don't know how many was anybody there here tonight? The future of ad blocking, right? Well, things have changed in the last couple of years, and I'd say new segment in the industry is describing that. So today we have some really good conversations. Obviously, thanks to Melissa Sapien, who's hosting this here. So I don't know if you guys knew where we're at. So thanks for joining us. And Ed is our host for tonight. He has a couple of things to say. And Ed works in the Melissa Sapien labs, which is kind of cool. Maybe you can share a little bit about what you do here.
Welcome everyone. I'm Ed Keeler. I'm a technical architect at Melissa Sapien. I've been working at Melissa Sapien for about 6 years now, and in a group that specializes extending brands to digital and physical presence together. So we work with a lot of brands for edge-based work, lots of large-scale flagship work. We work with brands anywhere from San Francisco International Airport to T-Mobile and Mercedes-Benz. If you have any questions, we've been running this real all nights, both on TV here and in the lab. And I'm around as well as Alan. We can answer any questions if anyone wants to follow up with work that we work on.
What's Publicis Sapiens? Do you want to just tell everyone?
Sure. So Publicis Sapien is a full-service digital agency. They specialize in digital business transformation. And that can mean many different things. So sometimes it's enterprise deployments of CRM, CMS. They work in media, advice, pretty much anything under the digital agency stack we have a hand in.
I'm Mark Addison. I work for a company called eyeo. Has anybody here heard of that company before? Wow. 3 people actually watching. So, thank you, Mario. Thank you, Ed. Thanks for this awesome space. Love it. I'm going to tell you just real quick, I'm going to set some context of what we're going to talk about, and we're going to run this after I show you these slides. I'm going to be essentially interviewing each of the panelists here tonight and querying them about trends that they see in the industry around monetization. Okay, and some of you might be scratching your head right about now saying, why is the guy from the ad blocker hosting a panel about monetization? But when you see the backstory about who this company is, it'll start to come through. So, eyeo is actually a software company, 9 years old, 10 years old. We have 3 products, 2 that you probably have not heard of, one that you have. So there's we have a trusted news browser extension, which queries a whole bunch of open source fact checkers to help you identify fake news, and not just try to find, but help you identify satire of that, so that you can browse with some level of comfort that what the articles that you're reading have some facts behind it. So that's why we have another product called Flatter, which is sort of like a Patreon product. It's a micropayment solution, and the idea is to let users directly compensate content creators using Flatter. What's different about it than other micropayments is you set one budget and it apportions that budget across all of the content sites that you see. It's mostly like Patreon, where you for response rate, 8%. The product that we're best known for is, of course, adblocking. It's the #1 ad blocker on the planet at this point by a pretty large margin. We've got a pretty good start. I'll go through a little bit about that, and then and you'll see the philosophy behind the company, and you'll start to understand why we go through the effort to have panels like this and educate audiences like you about what we're about. So, we started over 10 years ago. For those of you who don't know, the first ad blocker appeared on Earth in 2002. It was a Danish developer, I'm blanking on his name. It did okay, but then it just sort of, the open source code sort of was left in limbo. Then in 2006, a developer named Vladimir Blunt decided to fork that code. He picked up basically a 0.4 version of the code. How many of you, by the way, are developers? How many of you know what I'm talking about when I say open source? How many of you know what I'm talking about when I say fork? Okay, well, for those who don't, when you fork the code of open source, basically the rules of open source is whatever you develop, you put back up in the community for everybody else to take advantage of. And then the next person sort of picks it up and does their efforts and puts it back in the community. Every once in a while, somebody says, hey, I want to take this code, I kind of want to go in a different direction with it. And that's what they call forking the code. And you announce that to the whole community, the owners or the contributors to the code base. Up until that point, more or less have to give you permission to go ahead and fork it. But that's what we did. And it created an interesting situation. In this case, that's when we came up with AdBlock Plus. So the original open source code was called AdBlock. Okay? So how many of you realize that there is an ad blocker called AdBlock and one called AdBlock Plus? And to confuse things more, they both have red stop signs. Just to make things hard. But Vladimir basically forked the 0.4 code called AdBlock Plus because he wanted to take the development in a different direction. And the AdBlock code was pretty much ignored for the next almost 8 years until a guy named Michael Grunbach picked that up and then started developing AdBlock. And so now you have AdBlock in the world today. So Pioneer did a pretty good job. By 2007, it was already named, AdBlock Plus was already named one of the top best utilities by PC Magazine. By 2009, though, we ran into an unintended consequence. So we got a phone call from the guys at Reddit, and sadly, the guy at Reddit was supposed to be here tonight, wasn't allowed to. Reddit was going to be here, and unfortunately isn't here to tell the story. But we got a phone call from the co-founders of Reddit, and they said, you guys are killing us. What do you mean? Well, all of our users are using your AdBlock Plus browser, and we can't monetize any of our ads, and we're trying to figure out how to sell gold-level subscriptions and other things to make a difference. And we were like, ooh, that's not what we intended. We didn't realize that the ad blocker had become so successful and had become so pervasive, at least not in that, so much in that community. So Vladimir, at that point, coded a feature in the product that's similar today, which is the ability to whitelist page. So if you click on the stop sign and you say disable on this page, it just shuts down that ad blocking and allows the ad revenue to flow to your page. And we actually encourage our users to block responsibly. Okay? If we all blocked 100% of everything, we would break the internet. Right? There would be no more free content for anybody, and nobody wants it. Okay? And believe it or not even AdBlock Plus. We don't have some ideological or passionate reason to hate advertisers. We just want to get rid of the really, really bad, egregious examples of advertising, of which there are quite a few, as I'm sure many of you can attest. So in 2009, we created that feature to whitelist your favorite sites and encourage your users to use it. We found out that not enough people were actually doing that, right? Not enough to make a difference. So then Vladimir had this epiphany. Basically, his epiphany we had, a lot of our users hated the idea. But he said, if we centralize that whitelist, theoretically, we would create a market incentive for advertisers to make their ads, right? If you've got a few million people using an ad blocker, and you whitelist the good stuff, but block the bad stuff, theoretically, the advertisers will figure that out and know, well, let's make some better stuff, right? And it'll get through, and all will be better. And we will accomplish our mission of cleaning up an egregious and nasty and predatory advertising market. And the advertisers are happy, and hopefully the users are happy too. Well, like all good theories, it worked sort of, but there were some glitches. We got a lot of hate mail from our users that said, hey, what part of AdBlock Plus do you guys understand? And we dealt with that. But it started to work. And by 2011, we got to the point where we had to, well, where we were able to team up once again with the Reddit community and crowdsource a definition of what's a good ad and what's a bad ad. And then apply that definition of a bad ad and a good ad centrally to our websites. And so our mission of sort of cleaning up the advertising ecosystem, but staying true to our open source roots, and letting the community decide what is good or bad, so that we're not judge, jury, and executioner, is starting to work. And we call that acceptable ads. And if you Google that term, you'll see it. There's actually a website about acceptable ads. You'll see a lot of discussion in the industry about acceptable ads. And I just want you to remember this. Acceptable ads, the definition of it is crowdsourced. It's you, the people, you, the community, who are deciding what's acceptable and what's not. Very, very important point. So by 2015, Apple did something. And by the way, I've got another chart that was published in, I think, the Wall Street Journal that shows kind of like our rise as these different events took place. It was a pretty spectacular rise. So we've got more than 1 billion downloads at this point. That is, we're right on up there with, Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and things. In 2015, Apple did something really interesting. They kind of upped the ante. They were the first big company to kind of look at what was happening in the ad blocking space and go, yeah, we get it. That seems like a reasonable thing to do. We need to clean up the ecosystem. We're going to enable content blocking, okay? So in your iOS phone, AdBlock Plus does run in your iOS phone, but it works a little bit differently. It doesn't work as a browser extension because iOS browsers don't have browser extensions. But Apple created content blocking enablement. And so you can install AdBlock Plus and then you can go to your iOS settings into Safari and you can turn on your content filters, and it works that way. Then we're mainstream. I mean, we had already achieved kind of like that $750 million mark, and then when Apple came in and essentially vindicated what we're doing, validated what we're doing, then it shot over $1 billion very, very, very quickly. And then we caught a lot of flack, but a lot of attention. And Google saw the veracity in this, and they created something called the Coalition for Better Ads. And the way Google had to do this, because as being one of the biggest search engines and one of the bigger internet providers, they also saw what was going on. They realized that, hey, we also have to put sort of like a floor level of quality. And I applaud them for doing that. And they basically grafted a lot of the standards that we had already engineered using the open source community and our acceptable ads definition. And they applied that for the Coalition for Better Ads. And another thing that they did well was they pretty much rounded up the advertising and ad tech ecosystem around them, and they put some weight behind it, right? You don't want to piss off Google if you want your stuff to show up. So now the Coalition for Better Ads exists. Of course, by this time, we had blown way past what they were doing with our acceptable ads community. And we, being the open source people that we are, decided, hey, our loose-knit group of contributors on our public forums and our Reddit guys who help us define what's a good about ad needs to formalize a little bit. So we actually invited publishers and ad tech providers and advertisers and brands to contribute to that, and we created a legally separate entity called the Acceptable Ads Committee. You can actually be contributors to that community if you want. It was like 3-year stints. We made it a legally separate company that can actually tell us what to do, what we can enforce and what we can't. And we announced that in 2017. And by 2018, Harvard Business Review had declared us, this is my favorite quote ever, the most successful human growth company in all of human history. That was a big quote. They published a case study about the strategy that got us to over $1 billion. That case study is being taught at Haas and Columbia and Harvard and everything like that. And so that's the bad story. So when you hear somebody at a major ad tech conference talk about ad block process, like this group of people somewhere in Germany, we are in Germany, and somehow sort of magically appearing overnight and setting up a toll booth on the highway to extract extortion from advertisers, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's a 10-year running open source project to make the web a better place. And we still sort of believe that core. And what's happening now, and what's very gratifying in terms of the work that we do, is the rest of the industry and the ecosystem is starting to come out and see that, you know what, these guys at Core Plus, they might have something right. They might be doing something right. And they're starting to come out, and I can show you a few examples of that. So what I want to talk about now, tonight, with the panelists, is how we monetize an environment. So we've got people who block ads. We've got a very successful tool that's been downloaded over 1 billion times that lets people block ads. Many of you raised your hands and confessed that even though you work in the industry, you still block ads. So if I'm a publisher, how am I going to monetize that? I'm going to use a few user stats and you'll start to see the picture. So about 31% of all Americans block ads. It's far higher in Asia and Europe. But I happen to have the data from America. About 41% of millennials block ads. Millennials tend to be a little more tech savvy, they're digital natives in a lot of instances. So a higher proportion of them block ads. 80% of those ad blockers acknowledge that advertising is what pays for free content. Right? So there's some irony, right? You acknowledge that we're getting blocked. So what gives? Well, what gives is we did our own survey with in cooperation with HubSpot, and we found a whole bunch of things, but among the things that we found out is 83 of those bloggers don't want to block the really bad stuff. They're mostly sorry about it. They're mostly okay with advertising as a concept. They're not ideologically opposed. It's not like, it's some foreign religion to them. They just want some control and they want some quality. 77% according to another study were willing to see some ad formats in exchange for free content. 74%, however, my last one here, the way that we manage that those exceptions, right? The exceptions for the quote-unquote good ads has to be done very gingerly. So I'm sure the statistics, 74%. If you just throw up a blocker that says, hey, we see that you're using an ad blocker, if you want to see this content, you have to turn it off. Well, 74% will just go, nah, right? And we'll just bounce off the pitch. And so that's not particularly good for publishers. So the way, and as the ecosystem has evolved and as we've become more familiar with how our users react, we started to see better ways to deal with a publisher encountering an ad block user than just throwing up that wall and saying, hey, you got to shut it off, otherwise you can't see this. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Essentially what has happened now that we've been doing this for 10 years is two ecosystems of users have formed. There's the people who don't use a blocker, and they see whatever the ads are. And you know what? A lot of people are fine with that. Okay? We don't apply any judgment to people. It's not like we're, missionaries who have to spread the gospel and everybody's got to convert. It's like, hey, if you're good with ads, that's fine. But if you're not good with all the ads, we've got a solution for you. Or if we've got a solution that will give you some control, and you can participate in the larger community, sort of send your voice back up to the ad tech and the advertisers community, what you will and won't accept. And that will collectively make for a better community. The other ecosystem we're starting to call ad filter groups. So remember I was telling you about that whitelist? Okay. That first was a sort of a onesie-twosie decision that you could just do to customize your browser, but then we centralize it and make it apply to everybody. You can still customize it just for your browser, but we've established a certain trust with users that, given our crowdsourced approach to deciding what's a good or bad ad, they trust us to decide what's a good ad. And when you install AdBlock Plus, we have turned on by default the whitelist program. So, in deference to all of the publishers and all of the people who do need to make money from ads and are willing to do so responsibly by using ads that adhere to our guidelines for acceptable ads, they're exempt from filters. So what our users end up seeing is a page that is not completely devoid of ads, but is relatively uncluttered. A few of them. And it's mostly that, if you want to know what the criteria are, that's also out there in the open source, so just Google acceptable ads criteria, and like the first 6 links will take you straight to what they are. And it has to do with form and content, percentage coverage, and certain behaviors, and you can't have autoplay and moving GIFs and no interstitials, no pop-ups, no pop-ups, none of the games. You know what the bad ads are, okay? When you read these criteria, you'll go, yeah, that makes sense. But what we're trying to move the world towards is this, not this ad blocker, but this ad filterer who is willing to accept the acceptable ads as a fair exchange for free content. And a lot of companies have taken us up on the offer. They're actually using acceptable ads. This only applies to the ad blocking audience, right? It's only when their website encounters one of our users that the page renders differently using acceptable ads instead of just every other thing. And if we do side-by-side comparisons, which we do a lot, like when we show media and stuff like that, you'll see it, right? It's like readily apparent. And even, you know, you'll see the regular page and you go, oh my God, look at that loud, noisy page. That stuff looks hideous, especially if you go to one of the bigger news sites or some of the weather sites that are just chock full of those ads. And then you experience that same thing with Blogger. You'll see the difference. You go, oh my gosh, what an amazing difference that is. And the last question, some of you are probably saying, well, now who decides what's an acceptable ad? Remember I said we open sourced this all and we have this community? We've now created this acceptable ads committee, and the representatives from these kinds of companies are contributing their time and effort to that committee to keep us apprised of what are the new ad formats, what should we be considering for the marketplace now, given that the advertising genre is forever evolving and changing and creating new technologies. And so we invited people from the very industry to advise us on those matters. And that is it.
Sure. So I'm Shelly. I'm the product at Techlab. So Techlab technically is a different organization, but I want to start on that. So US, or better known as IIT, and outside of US there are several other IITs like IIT Europe or IIT Germany or IIT. They are a paid organization just like IIT US, and their focus is more on education, research, policy. The kind of members who attend very well and their working groups are more lucrative and sales and marketing. IIT Techlab was created in late 2014, mainly to focus on the technology and the product side of it. So we basically are a separate organization technically, registered as a separate entity completely. We do work with all the IITs closely. and we work with all the IITs across the globe. So our charter is global. IITs typically will have a charter only for because they're looking at policy and local governance and everything. We focus purely on technical standards that go across global boundaries. So we work with all of them. And the work that we do is somewhat like, the way I describe it is like USB and Bluetooth. The way these are standards that allow you to connect with different devices to each other very easily. We do something similar for the digital advertising industry. So we create the standards that allow companies to interoperate systems to talk to each other. And in process that we also provide guidance to the system. Also, we do software work, so we have our own engineering team and we have a lot of contributions from engineering teams of the companies. One of the first projects, so initially we built some small tools, like we built an ad validator which could check your ad for whether it's following guidance or not. And then we built other validators or small utilities to validate what we've implemented, whether it complies with guidance or not. But one of the big projects right now is the Open Measurement SDK, which is a full-fledged SDK that does all of the measurement and usability of an ad for in-app. It solves like a couple of problems. One is like publishers have to install the SDKs from 5 different parties to load the SDK. These are black box libraries. If something goes wrong, you're on the phone with those companies. And if you're familiar with the in-app ecosystem, it's not easy to fix an app. Immediately something goes wrong. The second thing was the measurement. Because of this, there was limitation on measurement. I think the data that we collected, there was less than 2 of such SDKs available in any app on average. So that means, and there are 5 or 6 major companies that do the measurement for advertisers. So it was a big blocker for advertisers to do business with these advertisers. If they didn't have their preferred partners, they wouldn't spend the money. So we built this one SDK that now publisher can implement one SDK. It's kind of open source, but it's not open source. We call it like shared source because there was some proprietary technology involved from the contributors, so we couldn't fully open source it. But if you want to access to the source code, you can sign an agreement and then we give you access to the source code. So it's not a black box library, it's something that publishers implement one time and it gives access to the data of all the measurement providers. So now the brands can actually do business with all of them. So that's one example of the work that we do with the software where it's necessary. So our focus is mainly on building foundational technologies which have shared costs and shared benefits for the industry. We always try to build everything is open source and non-competitive environment. But sometimes we have to do something like a shared source, but we still want to be able to give the industry access to whatever we build and not build products and this license thing on our own. So that's essentially what we do. We've got about 13 plus working groups that we have today that are working on different projects. So we have like 4 teams for this year, areas that we work in. One is brand safety and fraud. The other one is experience and measurement, which we'll probably talk about later. And then the third one is identity, privacy, and data. I think that's probably not the #1 issue for everyone right now. And then the fourth one is programmatic efficiency, which is the OpenRTB platform specification that increase the efficiency and transparency in the supply chain.
So actually, let's expand on that. There's some programmatic people here, right? Yes? Can you hear me? Let's expand on understanding sort of standards for programmatic, because you are literally the standards. So tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
So OpenRTB, I think, was probably way before I joined Tech Lab. It was created by a small group of companies who were trying to build supply chain programmatic exchanges. And then IIT took it over, and then IIT Tech Lab took it over. We have since expanded it to like multiple versions. The latest one is like 3.0. It's basically a specification on communicating between the exchanges and the partner on how to make a request for an ad or what's required for a request, and then how the buyers can bid on that and respond with the responsiveness or the response. And then of course the exchange, we are a trade organization, so we never we're not allowed to, and we never get into pricing and pricing practices and those kind of things. So the auctioning part is something that needs change that manages the transaction that they define that. But we define the pipe and the required number of parameters that we need to pass, the kind of information that all the players need to be able to make their bids and to be able to understand what that impression when request is about, so we define all that. So that's what OpenRTP is. We broke it up last year into multiple components because what happens is like some part of the technology moves faster than the others, and having everything under like one monolith spec was becoming a problem. So we kind of redefined it as open media. So late 2017, I think we redefined it as open media, which has the OpenRTP, which is purely the transactional part, and then it has something called AdCom, which is the definition of all your ad formats, and then it has the ad management API, which is another new kind of product that we introduced, which is a process to approve the ads that you set in the programmatic. Because in real time, once somebody bids and they send you a piece of code, there's nothing you can do. But with the ad management API, you can pre-approve and then you have that signature and then accept the ads that are already approved by the publisher for their bidding process. And then of course there's the Open Direct spec as part of under the same umbrella, which is not real time, but it's like automating your direct sales. And that's not that heavily used. It's used by some people, some companies, but we have a new division of it, and we're working with more people who have substantial portion of the sales through direct sales channels, who would be able to take advantage of that.
And it's rare that you see the IAB and AdBlock class on the same panel together. Actually, there's some good stories on the technical stage about that. But tell us, what standards do you have around AdBlocking? Have you done some of your own initiatives in that area?
So we, I think 2015, I think, was the year, I think, where we kind of shot like all these things blocking. As well as at that same time, like browsers and had also started taking note of the user experience, the page load speed, because they're trying to do their product to give their users the best experience. I think even before we looked at adblocking, the Google announced that they're going to shut down autoplay Flash. So that was the first project that we had in the lab to transition everybody from Flash to HTML5. And I had a webinar in September when Chrome announced it, and I was like, HTML5, like all web developers know it, what's the big deal? But I was surprised. I was a record-breaking webinar at IIT, like IIT overall. Like 1,000 people attended it for full hour on a webinar. That was like the first webinar at IIT. We were pretty proud of that. So that movement had started, like even like AdBlock was there, but even other products like browsers had started taking note of the quality or the pipes and the experience they were getting from the content and the way the content was being delivered. And then of course, we started looking at the ad blocking, and our position has been pretty clear from the beginning that we don't approve of the ad block approach. And I don't hesitate in saying that. Their approach is like the Crusaders, and ours is like 1 million people march. We want to take everybody along and go with a peaceful message and how to take it people come together. So that's the approach we take.
So tell us about Deal and Me, which were two initiatives.
Yeah, so that's the approach we took. So we started first with the Lean program. Ironically, like I sunsetted that program last month. So I put out a blog post, and I'll explain why I sunsetted it. So it's not really needed anymore. So the Lean program was basically lightweight ad choices supported, encrypted, use of HTTPS, which is something we've been trying to push from before. And then of course Monetization class, it was like these 4 pillars for part of the Lean program. And the message was for the industry to come together and getting overboard with that. So the lean program was started as part of that. And a follow-up to lean was the lean program where we wanted the publishers to engage their users and present to them the options and promise that we're going to issue ads that are planned with lean, that are lightweight, that are non-invasive. So those were the two programs that we started. And at the same time, a little bit of background about the CBA. So at the same time,
The CBA being the coalition.
so at the same time, we're having a meeting with ANA and 4As that, it's not just us telling publishers, because for IB, the majority of the member body at that time was publishers. It's not the case today. It's not just us telling publishers to fix things, it's also, because publisher is at the receiving end, right? He's the seller. He has to sell what he can sell. The advertiser says, I want you to show 9 eagles on the web page. There's not much choice, the publisher is left. So the whole, everything that was happening at that time was kind of punishing the publisher. So we wanted to bring others also together and come in with the same principles. So that, say, they're playing the equal level. So that's how the CBA was created. And I was creating another project at that time for the new ad portfolio, which was a revision of all the formats to be done based on the lean principles. And so when the CBA was created, we found out that Google had already done a lot of research on the ad experience model. And I had been talking to them about that, getting reports from the new ad formats. So that's how that whole research became the centerpiece for CBA as the better experience act.
We politely call us the Crusaders. As a group of open source enthusiasts who have been beating the drum for 7 years at this point, it was actually really encouraging to see IAB pick up some initiatives like Deal and Lean and Google to pick up CBA, because we, the Crusaders, sat back and said, wow, it's working, right? We set out to give consumers a way to protest a really bad ad experience, and we weren't sure, taking on a multi-billion, even trillion industry, whether we're going to matter, whether anybody was going to pay attention, whether this was just a futile effort. And after pounding that drum for 7 years and achieving some penetration in the consumer market, to see the industry respond, we kind of knew they weren't going to sort of welcome us with open arms and go, oh, we love you for helping us fix these problems. But surely, you described them as problems that needed to be fixed. And when we saw the industry respond that way, we felt like our purpose on this planet was starting to become validated.
And you need both, right? You need the crusaders and you need the peacemakers to make things happen. I think you brought the attention of everyone to the industry, to the level where it actually started making an impact and making us better listen. And then because we do what we do, we were able to get all of them into a room and get them to agree with what we do.
And the record through which Mel Rothenberg allowed us to come to the IB Leadership Forum this year. We were famously kicked out a few years ago. And it made the cover, not the cover, but it made the Wall Street Journal. It's pretty terrible. I'd like to take the discussion now to Jai. I want you to represent, so Jai's from the industry. Why don't we take I want you to sort of represent the brand's interest in all of this, because they're the ones who are paying the freight effectively, and they're the ones who ultimately have to see the online advertising ecosystem work to their advantage. Otherwise, they might take their dollars elsewhere.
Right.
So why don't you tell us about yourself a little bit first, and then what are brands demanding of online ads these days?
Actually, let me ask a really quick question. How many are publishers in this room? How many are advertisers? Have a product, trying to sell and get money? How many are technology? Who's anyone else? I'm missing out. So basically, that I'm on the agency side. So I've worked in London, New York, Paris, and the East. Ogilvy, Sapien, Waymaker, Neo, and my specialty has always been campaign strategy. So what the creative is, what the website, how the creative should be, what's it based out of, whether it's the content, the keyword, what kind of CPC, cost per click, what's the landing page supposed to look like, is the campaign interconnected so we can see the different pieces of it, and IAB plays a big role in that. Because we're doing thousands of ad placements across specific websites or site-specific, and then also networks that own thousands of websites that you see, like Meredith Communications, New York Times, and whatever. And so what we're seeing is that at the agencies I work at is that the advertiser in many cases, especially the big ones, aren't really looking at their data. They're not seeing, okay, we want to get this many visits. We want to get this many signups. We want to get this many leads. We want to get this many people in the net. Go ahead and do it. And until a couple of years ago, and IAB was actually a really big helper on it, and in some cases you guys are too, it gave us a platform to start going to our publisher, going to the advertiser and say, I'm just going to make Adobe, who's used to be one of my clients, is that you were serving ads to all these websites, however, using Flash. The landing pages that you're sending traffic to it's not Safari enabled. So they're getting bounced off and you're not tracking them. So for years, a lot of these advertisers have just been a fire and forget mentality. I spent this much money and I got this many views, and that's great. And then about 3 years ago, the campaigns and marketing split. There's awareness and brand, which is about lift, awareness, how many eyeballs, and whatnot. No tracking at all. And then this other smaller division, which is demand, which is also programmatic, email, and qualification, digital. And so we had to track everything, integrate everything. So we started to actually start seeing, like, hey, what's happening with that landing page? I have a creative, but like, is the click-through working? Is the ad actually showing where it's supposed to be? Not just on New York Times, but is it in the newsletter section that I want it to be because it's content syndication or content targeted. So it's becoming more specific, less ads or less campaigns that are more targeted because we can see it. The problem with it is that not enough companies are doing that. We're spending massive amounts of money. I'm spending $13 million a month in advertising across all these networks. But in many cases, once the person sees the creative, they click it no matter where they are. Do they actually come to the website? Do they bounce? Are they blocked by an ad blocker? We don't know. Having that data on the advertiser's landing page is really difficult where companies like yours come into play of being able to say, does it actually turn into a marketing qualified lead? MQL? Does it go into a DSP? And of these ads, which ones in this website are actually doing well? And that's where the demand starts coming in. Is that they're starting to say, I want to see an integrated report. I want to start seeing from what they call end-to-end lead flow tracking of the clicks, how many turn into leads, what's the percentage of those leads turning into MQLs and whatnot. And that's where the double click into Marketo or Salesforce really play a key role at DSP's relationship. Just because you got a lot of views doesn't mean it does anything. Like, I don't know if you guys remember this, I'll do a little quick one, is that when you go to, what was it, college.com or Scripps Network, where it's like, oh, if you want to sign up for this, go ahead and just fill out this form. And it was like a fake, was it like college.com? No, it was monster.com that was doing that. And so people would be signing up for these leads, and me as an agency was paying like $30 per lead. That basically, I had 1,000 leads that I paid $30 each for, and of those, nothing turned into it. So one, I paid a lot of money for nothing. My DSP, I had to pay for all of that. Pay my salespeople to call those people up, because the product that I had was over $50,000 each. And then trying to optimize against that. And so the advertisers are now starting to get like, look, we have to start forward thinking and say, hey, advertiser, we have to start looking at, let's look at your data. Let's look at points are finding out what's being blocked and what's being accepted. What is the standardization for relevant targeting and relevant creative size so we can track it across multiple websites, but also multiple creatives, multiple devices. Especially with GDPR, we're not going to get into that, but that's a whole other thing for you guys. But it's hard for us as an agency to tell the advertiser, like, hey, these creatives really aren't that great, or they're trying to use an overlay, where you're sending people to a page that has no call to action whatsoever, and you wonder why you're getting a bounce rate. In many cases, they don't have access or even authority to change the creative for that legal. They can't change the landing page because they don't even know who has access to it. So it's that difficulty of being able to get it. But with these two, we're able to go, hey, we're seeing the data, 50% of your traffic is being blocked. Then it helps us be able to have that conversation on top of any historical data that we have.
So, what are the brand managers going to do if the system doesn't clean itself up?
Curated content mostly. Adobe's doing it, they just went in-house. The big bust up a couple weeks ago with DDB, Walmart just went in-house as well. They're starting to do curated content, similar to Casper, where they're just like, look, we can't go to these websites and pay them amount of money. There's not necessarily fraud, but it's just really hard to do that kind of targeting ad. We need a team and somebody full-time to go through the analytics, like Adobe Analytics, AEM, and whatnot. So instead, what they're doing is they're creating infographics. They're curating their own content. And then me as an advertiser, that agency, I look at what are the keywords that are most relevant, that convert. Let's create content. Let's make sure what social media, what creatives, what infographics are working, and then it's almost like guerrilla marketing. It's a lot more relevant, but also helps on attrition. A lot of agencies have a hard time kind of getting going when the content is just not working and is not exciting. So by being able to go, hey, this content is doing great. There was just an article on the Wired about this. Let's create some content for it, do a targeted ad to that creative on that, on Wired, and drive them saying, hey, thank you for checking out this thing that we did for Walmart. Here's a little information, sign up here. That's fun for us. We don't like doing terrible ads, but the advertisers 9 times out of 10 say, this is all the money I had, we're going to use last year's creative. But which one of these actually worked? I don't know, just go ahead and use them. So that's difficult.
Excellent. So let's start the conversation now towards monetization. And for that, you're from one of the DSPs. What are you doing to help publishers better monetize?
Sure. Yep, exactly. I'm Chi. I've been a few DSP, which became Sidebreaking on so easy that you're also going to show its history. But the important thing, especially for publishers, and we work very closely with publishers, and what we found out is publishers see it as served, and that's pretty much it, right? They don't really see the data of the performance, what the CTR was. They don't see what the conversion was, how valuable that user was. That's one of the things we found, that sharing that data with the publisher itself helps them understand what their user base is. Today what they have is whether they use domain or whatever DMP that they use, they don't have male, female, age, gender, etc., right? But they really don't know the value of that user. And working closely with the publisher, we're able to identify, hey, these group of users are extremely valuable for us. Our bid rate is higher, our win rate is higher, our bidder likes it, and this is why. Sharing this data helps them understand, because a lot of times it's just black box. The second is, in the programmatic world, especially if you have open exchange, it's all real time, auction, the publisher is pretty much blind to the whole process. And the advertiser as well. So sharing with the publisher who the advertiser is, what their budget looks like. Because a lot of times the DSP and the agency knows in advance, okay, the budget is it's going to be 3 quarters worth of it or 3 months, and this is the activity that's going to be done, etc. Sharing with them this information helps the DSP and the agency better. And the reason is you can give better pricing, they can point towards articles, they can also point towards creating content for you, specifically the budget is large enough. So this cohesive working together instead of being I won't share information with you, and the transparency helps the ecosystem overall. So that's one thing from a monetization perspective. The other piece is, the bare basics that they need to do is, hey, you know what, we're seeing that the bounce rate is really high, right? The performance is not that great, or the durability is really low, so we won't be buying this traffic. Sharing this information with the publisher, again, because there are so many layers in between the publisher and the buyer, publisher is pretty much planning to it. I would suggest, very, very highly is the publisher invest, like you said, in great content. We've seen brands coming, the large brands to a small brand as well. They really care about the engagement rate of the user on the site itself, right? So, think of the number one property where people go on a daily basis, spend time and are okay with that, it's Facebook, right? And every publisher needs to think about, what can I do in terms of engaging content where the ads are okay to be there, and they should. And yes. And that's it, right? So I would say that's extremely important. And then third is have an effective strategy where you're working with the brands and the agencies to get higher CPM for your most valuable users, right? So PMP, EG, work and plan on around tentpole events, Mother's Day is coming up, right, etc., etc. So again, don't work in silos. A lot of publishers are just living in their own world. Don't do that. Reach out to the buyer side, the DSP side, and engage regularly.
We work with them on a lot of our ad buys, especially historical, that they are the advertiser's client. So we are their client too. So we usually talk to them before we talk to the advertiser because they have the historical data. They know how to use their system better. 9 times out of 10, we'll ask them a question like, what are the reports I should be pulling that on? Right.
And you talk about all the layers in between, and we've all heard about this ad tech tax, which could be as high as 40%. So what can publishers do to make sure that more of that trickles down into that?
Right, and you'd be surprised. So I've been on part of a lot of working groups and I spearheaded the AdsTXT, right, supply path optimization. So the one thing that you want to do as a publisher, and we work very closely with the publishers that pretty much have their own speech data, right, is you want to find out where is your best win rate, right, when you're not only what DSPs are bidding, but also where your win rate is high and your CPM clearance is high. The most second thing is DSPs, you would be surprised how many DSPs will work with you to pressure the exchange, right, or the SSP to reduce the percentage that they take off. Yep. And I have worked with numerous SSPs to do that. For publishers, especially the large ones we care about, to say, hey, you know what, we will start buying from you if you don't drop by X%. Or it cannot be, and we actually have in our process where you as an SSP cannot take more than X percentage, right? So we want the publishers to exist, we want publishers to make revenue.
So you're leveraging your position to extract those concessions out of the supply.
We leverage our demand powers to extract the SSPs to be paid, right? But a lot of times the SSPs have these blind auctions that you don't know what the fees in each auction is taken out. So we put that in our cost. I would highly suggest each publisher to ask a publisher their exchange as to what are these fees taken out on each auction. Are they sharing with you the true price or the bid amount post the fees? So you need to ask these questions and ask for reporting. And we have worked with numerous publishers to reconcile saying, hey, I bid $1, Mr. Publisher, how much did you get paid? So you can find that out as well. So that's how AdsTXT came about with Jana and Business Insider, and we found out people were selling inventory that they should not be selling, right, etc. Like Jana said, I am not selling that inventory, how are you seeing them in exchange, right? So, yeah.
That's why we're talking to these guys are really important because it's a collective. So they have a massive buying power, but they also have a lot of ownership.
Correct. And then in terms of just investing, where should we invest from not just a content perspective, but on the ad side? video strategy, but do not have an annoying video strategy, right? And then be very, very careful when you have a video strategy, it's a mobile device. I would be surprised how many publishers just get it wrong. Mobile doesn't have the same firepower, right? And people are usually in a quick browse mode, so you got to be careful. You need to have a video strategy because people like related content to what they're reading, and 9 out of 10 times they just want to watch it quickly. So invest in a 6-second bite video content strategy. And the last piece that I would say that I am really excited about is connected television. I have in my history of being at tech not seen anyone at format grow up this quickly, this fast, and the budgets are just mind-boggling. CPMs are north of $20, and the budgets are just going up. So, as a publisher, how can you parlay with that if you don't have connected TV content? Is how can you be a combination or a companion to a connected TV strategy? Think about that, right? Because 9 out of 10 times people are browsing or watching television, right? Or watching content. So those are pieces that I would highly suggest for what you do.
So TV is back. And you're starting to touch on this, but what else can you, especially with the way you leverage your position in the industry, what else can you do to help ensure a better user experience, to make sure that some of these really massive user experiences get through the system?
Yeah, so you'd be surprised how many systems have flash. So we had to, last year I was just shocked of like why we have JavaScript injection and etc. So in my platforms, really need to invest, and we've done the amount of work is invest in technology to stop right auditing on these creatives before they even show up on the publisher side. Because who is the end loser at the end of the day? It's the publisher, right? I just lost an impression. I don't care, right? And probably the advertiser lost a couple of bucks, right? But the end user experience loser is the publisher because they spend a lot of money to acquire it, right? Most cases, you guys, your acquisition strategies on Facebook. We spend, and we take this pretty seriously, is how to ensure that the ads are audited and they have tech, etc. But they do still go through. The reason is with automation, you have self-serve clients, they have a lot of bad actors. There's certainly you tend to be so XYZ brand, but there's something else. So that's an area that I would say, it is of concern for our folks. And the second is, helping the publisher understand, giving them feedback. You said you just have too many ads, right? By replacement, your visibility is too low. Even though you do have the ad, you also want the ad. A lot of times that the ad load time, right, is so high that it just doesn't end up. So the experience is bad itself, right? So in a lot of the cases, the users probably not be that as well. So just giving them that information is extremely essential. So reach out to your existing partners. A lot of times exchanges will probably hand them off, but it's very easy to find out the right person at an ASP. Just go on LinkedIn and say, you know what, I'd like to get XYZ report. They're more than happy to work with you guys.
And just on that one little piece, is that there's on our side, 9 times out of 10 agencies making a buy a third-party ad buy. So we have our own, we're using either Seismic or DoubleClick or whatever, and then we take that code and give it to Seismic, and Seismic then serves it to the publisher's website. 9 times out of 10, the advertiser, the agency, us, we don't know that we haven't done bandwidth targeting or creative targeting. Only serve this ad to people with a broadband of 2.6 and above. If it's anything less, serve this GIF. If it's mobile, serve this. And when it goes through a network for programmatic, it's open like a fire hose. So it just serves. So by talking to your ad server, you can say, look, if you see ads coming through that are like 5 meg videos, like what you're looking at, don't serve it. Or only serve it, even though at my side it's open, only serve this to mobile users that are on the G4 network, or only browsers that are whatever. So it's a give and take. It's better to talk to them than us.
A great point there. And another piece, and this is against your world or probably my world, is a publisher should look at a mixed solution of ads plus content, ad-supported content. And I've seen Access, right? They have no ads at all. And then you have someone like, properties at Hyundai, like People Magazine or one of those where they have content supported by brands as well as that. So have the both experience so that your monetization is not just through ad revenue.
And as if that all of that isn't incentive enough, just keep this in mind. If your ad, freezes someone's browser, or breaks their phone, or does any little thing to annoy them, they're going to install our ad blocker. So,
And there's ways to test it, like with four-click, with double-click, and side-click, and others. The publisher gets the ad in their server, they can either approve or not approve. You can test it before it goes live, whether on by device, by browser, by bandwidth. And we don't, a lot of times at the agency, we don't do it. We don't have enough time. And then we kind of rely on the publisher to do it, which they're not experts, so it's hard.
So our last speaker is pretty interesting. Remember how I was telling you about these acceptable ads that are user consented that some people are willing to watch? Well, there's all these exchanges that have popped up, programmatic exchanges where you can go shopping for ads. And Tim is from an exchange that, of all things, serves acceptable ads. So Tim, why don't you tell us relatively new, but tell us.
I thought you forgot about me. Glad to be here. So I am with the AAX. AAX stands for the Acceptable Ad Exchange. So we're a marketplace of publishers and advertisers. We work with publishers to enable them to reach their users who have installed an ad blocker and have consented to be part of this acceptable ad initiative. So, how does that work? So a lot of people who have installed an ad blocker, you may or you may not know this. If you haven't installed an ad blocker, you probably definitely wouldn't know this, but when you install an ad blocker now, so if you go and you install AdBlock Plus, you'll see as part of the download, you have the opportunity to consent to being part of this acceptable ad initiative. And as we talk about, what is an acceptable ad? Well, the reason why, as Mark explained, the reason why people install ad blockers is because they're tired of invasive or interruptive ads, right? So acceptable ads are determined by this third-party acceptable ad committee. But as you can imagine, they're static GIFs instead of animated GIFs. They're not video. There's a lot of text and native ads. So that's what the acceptable ads initiative is all about. It's finding the right balance between the publishers able to make revenue and the advertisers having a positive and a non-interruptive online browsing experience. So that's the AAX. We work with a lot of publishers around the country, around the world, and they are now, and I guess the value proposition for these publishers is that if you are not working with a company like AAX, then you're unable to monetize these ad block users. By working with us and being part of the acceptable ad exchange, publishers can now begin to monetize and serve acceptable ads to these ad block users. From the advertiser and the brand standpoint, the value proposition is very much the same. Currently, you're not able to reach what we consider a very valuable demographic because ad block users, they're younger, they're highly technical, and this demographic spends a lot of money online. So for brands and advertisers, they get to reach this demographic that they previously haven't been able to reach. And then from the consumer standpoint, the real value here is instead of it being referred to and looked at as an ad blocker, we're looking at this as an ad filter. So this is the way that the consumer has a voice. So if you are tired and frustrated of your online experience by certain publishers, you can download an ad blocker, you can consent to being part of this initiative, the Acceptable Ads Initiative, and you can still support your favorite publishers. So that's how it works.
How big is this market? What are we talking about?
It's in the U.S. I think it's 150 million users who have installed an ad blocker. So, I mean, it's massive. It depends on the publisher. If the publisher has this demographic, which is young and tech savvy, it could be 35% of your user base. A more generic, it could be 15% of your user base. So we're now working with publishers that haven't been monetizing these users in the past. They're now serving acceptable ads, and they're generating millions of dollars in incremental revenue. So that gives you kind of an idea of the size and the potential based on the publisher and the users who are watching ads.
Yeah, it's relatively new, so how long have you been doing this?
So we've been doing this, I'd say it's probably about 2 years ago when the company eyeo and the other owners of the development of ad blockers, they didn't want to be in the advertising business. They're not in the advertising business. They're in the business of producing consumer software. So it was really a couple of years ago that they came up with the Acceptable Ads Initiative, and a lot of users consented to being part of this initiative.
So how long has the exchange been around?
Yeah, it's fairly new. It's fairly new.
And can you tell, I mean, you've got some publishers who are using it. Can you tell us, can you share anything?
So we are working with Reddit, we're working with Visions at Davis, we're working with Fusion Media Group, so we're working with some big publisher groups.
All right, so did any panelists want to chime in on that last one before we open it up to the floor?
It's not just the user that accepts the program, it's also the publisher has to sign up for it.
Yes, so the publisher requirement is that they have to install JavaScript code in their header. It is, we enable direct sold campaigns through the DFB integration, and then we also enable programmatic as well. But yes, so the publisher, they're not overriding ads, it's the user that has consented to receiving these acceptable ads, and it's the publisher that we're working with to be part of this exchange.
Any questions out there?
Of the AdBlock Plus users who block in particular sites, what percentage of them have allowed for the acceptable ads?
So it's approximately 81% of AdBlock users that are opted in to receive and be part of acceptable ads. So it's a very high percentage.
Are they just opted in by default?
Yeah, how's that work?
So there is a checkbox. It is an opt-out requirement. So if you don't, so you're by default, you're opted in, and you have the opportunity then to opt out. Also, at any time, all you have to do, if you're, for example, if you're an AdBlock Plus user, you just click on the icon, and you'll see that opt-out functionality will appear, and you can always opt out.
Just a question.
Actually,
Yeah, you can.
follow on that one. One of the things that I'm very careful is targeting is the life stage events that we're all trying to allow onto to find something to talk to people about to get to their money. When it comes to ad choices, have you guys seen any signals that people will migrate their choices and tastes in the ad and the whitelisting process? If you guys see anything where I might start off with 5 or 6 sites that say, yeah, I'll accept anything from you, and in 6 months I will reevaluate that and come back and look at it again. And if you have seen something like that, what's it like? And if not, more so from the advertiser side, have you guys contemplated some form of initiative to attempt to get people to, again, grow and engage with this ability to say, hey, yes, I am not interested in belly fat ads, but I need a new mortgage soon. But it's not going to be for another couple months, but I don't want to make that decision now. Help me in 6 months. I know it's not committed one. This is more so about.
Rarely they do.
Yeah.
So we work with Seismic and DoubleClick you need a team to do it. There's not a lot of agencies that do it. We do it for the advertiser. And the advertiser doesn't do it in-house, so HP, Dell, Adobe, all the big ones that spend tons of money, including Amazon. For teams like mine is that we optimize the campaign. Once we see a particular IP address or the Salesforce identification, we make sure that they're out or opted out of the campaign, but it's very rare to be able to do that. What's called is that it's called IP targeting. So once someone sees the creative, we don't show them that creative again, and we wait. It's one every 20 minutes, twice per day, so we rotate creatives to kind of get around that. But micromanaging it to that certain point, Amazon's one of the best. It's followed closely by Walmart, and they still suck at it.
Because it's two things that happen, right? One is ad capping, frequency capping, and the second is, the large DSPs, lucrative is one of them, right? Who do trade desk and who have AI, so it's like automated billers, where they've actually built a graph on each user. They know for the user, what your household looks like, your preferences, because they actually see your online activity, but they know your online
I
activity.
used to work at a D&D,
Yeah.
so I know, yeah.
It's like we know your email address, we see that your membership, we have all sorts of different data to be able to say that is that person.
Yeah.
Right, so that, targeting the user to the ad that they might be in market for, right, is definitely a way to go, right, but we also see where you engage with some brand once and you start getting targeted and stop all around the internet as well, right? So you have that experience as well. So I think everybody needs to take a collective approach that needs to be standard that's followed by everyone around frequency capping, right? Around retargeting. I think that's the one that needs the most attention. And then in terms of in-market data, a lot of times it's so outdated so quickly. I think getting a real-time solution for that is going to be tough.
So, I just want to follow up on the publisher side, right? So the publishers, they have incorporated, they have tried different methods for communicating with these ad blockers, right? So they've said that yes, you can whitelist, please whitelist us, or they've said, hey, subscribe if you want to see this content. But again, some of the data that Mark showed, basically that's not working. It's it's very cumbersome to try to convert one user at a time. And so there would be certain venture companies that try to get you to opt in to seeing ads on a certain individual publisher side. But just to be clear, even though it is by default an opt-out of acceptable ads, technically these are all users who have consented to be part of the acceptable ads. So it's not really, so the publishers will then have to treat them as more sensitive, right? It's just that, can you serve them the right message at the right time? Yes, but it just can't be as intrusive or flashy as some of the other ad units.
At least from my side, is that if a publisher comes to us saying that we want a different size or different creative, we'll work with them to a certain extent to say, let's make sure through size pick or double click to only serve it to certain people with big bandwidths or whatever. But 9 times out of 10 without the conversation, we'll just take out the ad buy and reallocate the budget to someone else. So the conversation has to occur.
There's a question here. Yes. So for the acceptable ads exchange, from just my personal experience, a lot of the times people aren't really opposed to ads in general as much as they are opposed to tracking. And
What's your industry right now? What's your industry?
No, I work in a completely different industry, so I'm just kind of speaking from my own personal user perspective. And the thing about Google is that they have so many products that people use just in various areas. So they have YouTube, they have the search engine, so they're able to kind of collect all that data and understand the user and build a profile. For acceptable ads exchange, because you don't have access to that same kind of data, how are you preventing, so for instance, if I'm just going on Reddit and I don't want to see an insurance ad, how do you stop that?
So we're not limiting. You would still see an insurance ad. So it's really more of a format specific issue as opposed to you receiving an insurance ad. So the truth is, you would still see an insurance ad. It would just be in the format. And the acceptable ad criteria doesn't have to do necessarily with the name of the brand or the type of the brand. It has to do with making sure that above the fold, the ad only represents 15% of that particular page. That the ad itself never interferes with that content. And it's static instead of animated. So the chances are that you would still see that insurance ad, but let me do a little research and I will get back to you on
Because,
that.
I mean, it's almost, from what I was proposed to you, so, we have, in AdBlock Plus, the way it works when you set it up for the first time, you subscribe to different filter lists. It's a whole other open source, private source industry that I didn't really get into, but that's all we open sourced that years ago, so any ad blocker basically uses the same filter list that we created for us. And our number one most popular filter is called Easy Privacy, and it's to stop a lot of trackers, so that's how we do it.
Well, the thing is, without tracking, you don't get relevant ads. And I would say that irrelevant ads are equally annoying. They just start showing up just because, the consent for the acceptable ads, it's just kind of like hidden for most users. I don't think most of them are actually aware that they can uncheck the acceptable ads.
Well, it's still beginning. So some reports and some publishers I've worked with is that we'll get notifications, like reports, performance reports, saying, hey, we're seeing this ad is bouncing, or this ad's flash isn't working, or we're getting similar to what we get from our performance reports. So it's just like an extra layer of, hey, we're sending ads to this particular industry, say it's the Reddit technology servers, and we're seeing that, like when we see an ad in DoubleClick, which is 98% of all publisher websites around the world, that you can click the X button and it says this ad is irrelevant. We get those kinds of reports. And we have a certain, if we see a certain criteria or KPI, then we'll let the publisher know, the advertiser, like, hey, we need a new creative, or we're just going to not run that ad there, because we only have a certain amount, and then their system tests it even before it launches.
It does, and to add to that, and I'll come to your question, and to add to what you just noted is, if you are not being tracked, which means you're not being paid, it's kind of cyclical is the fact that the DSP usually cannot match you because it's problematic. There's an exchange, so DSP matches with the exchange, matches the publisher. That means that is the inline impression. The CPM will be really, really low, and who loses out to the publisher, right? That user could have a great converter, but the fact is it's blind, right? So most DSPs will just really lose on the impression.
So just to clarify, there are third-party tracking cookies used for targeting purposes, right? And we would also share with the DSP, because we have the programmatic capabilities and functionality. So I don't want to go too much into the targeting capabilities right now, but I understand your point. You cannot opt out of certain ads. So as of now, that's not possible. But we're still serving you ads that are relevant and targeted to you.
Actually, one technical correction. On the ad blocking side, for advanced users, there's something inside of AdBlock Plus under the advanced settings called eyeo. And if you are so inclined to be technically adept, you can actually pick and choose exactly what kind of elements your browser experience. And you can create effectively your own filter list for certain elements, but it's not for the amateur.
So again, so you can, at any time, you click, like, AdBlock Plus, right? So you just click on the logo, you can opt out, and so you can block all ads, right? So you always have that option. And you also have, you can maintain consent, right? And to be part of acceptable ads initiative, but then you can also, there's a box you can check that blocks third-party cookie tracking. So there's some different levels that are part of it. But again, we're trying to keep, these are not users based on our research. They're not opposed to seeing ads overall. These are users who understand the value proposition. They understand that they need their favorite publishers to exist. So they're just trying trying to find a balance. So what is that right balance? Well, the balance in terms of how the ad is presented is determined by the acceptable ad committee.
And the other side of the coin is that for advertisers, because they're showing the relevant ads, therefore the performance of the campaign is down. How are you addressing that?
So again, you're questioning whether or not it's relevant.
No, I'm questioning how are you, for the advertisers, because they want to get relevant traffic, then how are you addressing that problem?
So again, it's through the cookie syncing process.
I think there's always a balance, right, between maximizing advertisers spending and budget and ensuring user experience. We live in that world today. Earlier, television and newspaper were etc. But today, so there has to be a balance. There's technology for it, right, as well. So I'm happy to talk offline. There's good technology today. Everybody in the industry actually has been good.
We have a question over here. Let's throw
Paul has
I'm a publisher. I get the idea conceptually. And I would love to monetize people with, it sounds beautiful to me. That, I get it. We serve a lot of really nasty ads because we're trying to stay in business. And I'm proud of that. And I love the idea that users say, when I say nasty, I'm talking about format. Excuse me. Format.
It's probably
Not what you're thinking.
it's probably the 20 or 15, the smaller.
Just, here's stitials and whatever. I love the idea that users are saying, look, if you show me well-behaved, discreet, like we're just advertising to you and then there's content, we'll watch your ads. I love it, but I just am curious on the technical side, how exactly does this work? I mean, am I replacing all my ad tech with, just in terms of the engineering,
Right.
am I just dropping a script on the page?
You're dropping a script on the page. And that script is only called when it's an ad block user.
Okay.
And then we'll do an integration with using DFP small business or DFP premium. We'll do an integration so that you can.
So basically, we're working in partnership with
your ad server.
network.
Yeah, your ad server, and we do have a programmatic solution that we can talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, for the non-publishers in the room, they got a little bit of tech talk, but one of the things that Adult Plus, when we succeeded in getting all these users, and we started having publishers come to us and say, okay, I get it, I want to be good to my users, I want to serve them good ads, how do I work with you? And we went through this laborious manual process of first having the community sort of give the thumbs up, thumbs down, whether they were in fact behaved, and then proceeding to manually put their ad servers on what we call our acceptance list. So we've got, the filter list that blocks everything, and then we've got this exceptions list that unblocks some of those things if they're okay. Well, that was all great, but it was just so kludgy, and it would take 2 months to implement. So well-meaning publishers like you and Reddit and others were going, come on, Adblock Plus guys, you've conquered the planet, but now we want to do what you want us to do, and you're not helping us. So that's when we had to get smarter on technology and fund development of things like this exchange, where they can make a programmatic exchange and where you don't change anything. And for a non-publisher, it works like this. Reader comes to the website, okay? Script in the website says, is this an Adblock Plus user? If the answer is no, your existing infrastructure and everything that you do today remains exactly the same. Okay? Nothing changes. But if the script says, yes, that is an Adblock Plus user, if you've opted into an exchange like this, it funnels that user to this other ecosystem where acceptable ads, whether it's a bidding process on only acceptable ads. So that user you as a publisher can monetize a user, and it's easy. You don't have to do anything. You do all the same tools, all the same dashboards. You just insert the script. So for non-techies, that was the big sort of breakthrough.
So are you blocking the actually the idea of the creative, of how to determine if that creative as opposed to any Flash creative or any creative?
No, it's just the, we whitelist the subdomain. So the publisher, we would create a subdomain of your website, and we would whitelist that.
So I know you just sort of said this wasn't the case, but if we're creating a subdomain, does that mean we're creating separate formats for that, or it's just a matter of...
Yes, well, potentially, we would also limit certain formats, right? Because you said that on your current site,
It's pretty
certain model. So yes, we would actually...
So it'd be kind of like an account model where it's like a standard that we have to comply to in terms of the...
It is. It's the acceptable ads criteria. If you go to acceptableads.com, you can see the criteria.
Okay.
There are two questions simultaneously in the back.
Sure. So from an advertising perspective, I work with digital if we serve ads, if we have a default creative, will that serve to someone who has an ad blocker, or how we kind of sidestep not serving ads altogether to like save money on specific targets? If we have a default creative, will that serve, or will they?
They usually strip out both. What she's talking about is a default creative when you serve an ad that looks like a video or looks like the actual creative before it becomes active, a larger creative as it's downloading the background, then it overlays. So now it's a video, or now it's Flash. So with and correct me if I'm wrong, at least what it'll do is flip over. And so some like seismic double click will overlay a default creative that's that they select. So nothing will show. Like old school, it used to be just like a big X and then that's it. I assume it's changed a lot.
So, sorry, just to clarify, it's different than if a user comes, if the ad isn't able to serve it, it's an HTML5 like a rich media banner or whatever, and they don't have bandwidth, and then it serves like the JPEG that we just assign as the default creative. Will that get served to a person with an ad blocker, or not at all? It'll just be that the advertisement is gone, we didn't get the impression, but we're also not bidding on that person, so we're not losing any money, or we are losing money?
You bid the user, so this is what happens with the block ad. You bid the user,
Sorry, that's me.
you bid the user, you won the impression, however, that user is blocked ads, right? So it will be a blank ad that's shown, nothing will be shown. By default, created.
So from our standpoint, so if it's a direct sold campaign, so then we would work with the publisher to review all their direct sold and direct traffic campaigns. If it's a programmatic campaign, then we work with specific demand partners that have that criteria. So I don't even think we would get to that point. All the demand, for the most part, is going to meet that criteria. And that's because we're working with specific demand partners. But for more, I'll chat with you afterwards to get in a little more detail.
Okay.
So this is where this is where the word discrepancy, and I'm sorry I'm opening up Pandora's box here, is between, because there's so many years, between the publisher and the advertiser. The numbers never match. The publishers, ad servers, right? They never, and the advertisers, ad servers, the numbers never match. So a lot of times there are three reasons. One is, the impression you want that user is accepting ads, but they just bounce. They run away somewhere before you can even show the creator. You're left holding it back, right? The advertiser is left holding it back, the publisher still gets paid. The second is the creator did not load for whatever reason, it was an issue on your end, right, etc. You're still blamed away. And the third is the user has blocked it. So that does happen. We hope to keep discrepancies as low as possible by informing and working with the publisher. We work very closely with the agencies. Those SSPs are great. There are two that are terrible. Yahoo, which is 10%, which is Verizon Media, and advertisers is at 30%. Those are two. Google is really good. Alex, from an exchange perspective, right? So that's the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, and there's a corollary question that you didn't ask, but that's probably on a lot of people's minds. Does the brand end up paying for an ad that never showed up because the user blocked it? Okay. So now I have to tell you just real quickly how ad blocking works. It's really easy. It runs in your browser and it tells your browser not to fetch an ad in the first place. That's it. That's all it does. It's really that basic. So nobody's ever paying for an ad that
That's not how it is. That's a programmatic word, not a programmatic word.
We still pay for the serve. We still pay for, we pay them 0.005% for a creative, depending on how heavy it is. So they still see the impression, the weight of it, of delivery, we still pay for it. So they have to reconcile with the publisher saying, hey, there's that 5% discrepancy. So in some cases, there's that pillow of discrepancy, but we only pay what we actually serve and can see that there was an impression.
So what you're saying is true if every ad call was made from the user's browser, but that's not always the case because sometimes the ad calls are made from the server when the page is being constructed before it lands. That's why we start. So that's the scenario where you can have block ad after the response.
And most of the large publishers, you don't want to make a call to the browser, and you don't want to wait for that ad call.
Stay user expert.
All right, Penn State has a question?
Yes, I do. So this is taking a little bit higher level, and I do have a ad blocking POV, so it'll selfishly asking this. But so I've worked with a lot of big brands like Disney, eBay, etc., and ad blocking comes up, and we have all the same data that you presented on. We use ad blocking, we go after millennials, we go after tech savvy, and it never stops us from changing the way that we do our media planning though. So I just wanted to get your perspective on kind of the data, the elevator speech, like what is that catch that will get these bigger brands to start to shift their perspective in terms of the creative that they do, the things that work fine, so we can go to them and say, do more content or et cetera, but at the end of the day, our HTML5 display ads are what converts, so.
Yeah, so please don't sneak out. I'd love to chat with you after this. So it's taking, this is the evolution. The evolution, as Mark presented, is from pure ad blocking to ad filter. So these are valuable consumers, and I can share with you data on these consumers and their demographics, right? We already talked about that. But in order to reach them and to message them, you just have to treat them a little bit differently, right? So they're very sensitive users. So we have to treat them that way if we're going to message them, and we want to. So great demographic, great opportunity in terms of having a more interesting story in the future as we bring more publishers that we currently work with into our exchange and make them aware of the difference between ad blocking and ad filtering. They become more of an interesting story. I don't know if that answers the question.
I would probably give an analogy. If a brand wants to reach cord cutters, they're not going to run an email TV ad, right?
Well, I think so. If that demographic is converting though, then how do we kind of combat that story then? That there is this ad blocking audience, but say their research is saying, well, they're still converting. So why do we have to change up?
No, that's a good point. And I think the only way to address that is through data, right?
Yeah.
And case studies, and that's the only way you're going to be able to combat that.
Yeah, when you start seeing, are you guys using DoubleClick or who are you using for so the data that you're coming in for your campaigns, no matter what channel that you're using, what device, is that if you start seeing usually 5 to 7% are not converting, they're usually with specific sites or specific devices. And then you go in a little bit deeper, is the creative functioning incorrectly, is the page loading incorrectly, or is it an ad blocker, or is there something else? If you start seeing that it's a page issue, then you have the conversation. If it's a creative issue, that's really hard for the agency, because creative is approved and that's it. But if you start seeing that there's like 15% of ad blocking, that's really hard to go around. Usually you go, okay, we're not going to use a creative banner, button, skyscraper, or whatever. Let's do content syndication, or let's do reach out to the publisher and say, hey, of the people that are on the site that are not blocking us, their conversion rate is around 7%. What other advertisers have you guys used, cars.com, whoever, that has seen that kind of success? How about sponsorship? How about an email? How about a newsletter? How about those other attractions? Asking how are our other competitors working with you as a publisher getting around this? And that's the way. Usually pop-up blockers, you can't touch them unless it's through like email or another complete channel. It's just very difficult.
What is the growth rate today? Still growing, the adoption of adblocking, or is it stable?
I was hoping to ask you that question. He's asked me, hey, is that what is growing? So here's the thing, just because of our ideology, we don't track anything about our users. It's a little bit crazy. We have to rely. So we have to rely on external surveys from PageFair and all the other companies to even know ourselves. And I was hoping you'd tell me, the IAB, you're not tracking anything.
In the latest data, right? So the latest report that came out said, basically they asked, do you envision ads becoming more or less intrusive, invasive? And I think the question may have been more specific, do you envision using ad blockers in the future? And 53% said yes. So, and that I think was with 18 to 24-year-old demo. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a skyrocket growth, like when ad blockers hit the market, but it's more of a continued use.
And it's kind of industry-centric. So if it's like most ads and brands, it's not that big. With Reddit and Plex and media sharing and coding in the industry, they're very advanced. They're lock on block for many different reasons. So if you're trying to target those people, that's going to be difficult. But you can do it. Right, exactly. It's being able to kind of identify, okay, we're going after these other segments. Do historical data and look at the ad delivery, identify what I do the 80-20, top 20% websites that perform, and then be able to say, those sites working great, the ads are converting, there's no ad blocking, keep going. The bottom 20, most likely, is that there's something wrong, including ad blocking, cut them from the list and not.
But is that the only way that we can see if there's an ad blocker, is basically just weeding out the sites that are performing well?
Well, you can set within most ad servers with third-party tracking, just to say if target these people, whether it's programmatic or just general, like browser, device, bandwidth, whatever. If that person has an ad blocker, don't serve. We just say don't serve at all. So we don't even get a chance because I don't want to waste it. Because it'll throw off. Because for those sites that do have it, it's just like a water hose. They're just getting like general run a site ads, which is horrible. I'd rather spend my money elsewhere.
Hey guys, we're going to do probably one more question, and then the panel's I think will hang out.
Yes, please.
I'm getting the same, so go for it.
So if the websites are displaying acceptable ads only to the users with an ad blocker, where they enable acceptable ads, and then they display unacceptable ads to everyone else, aren't they effectively encouraging everyone to install an ad blocker and then therefore giving them the capability to completely get rid of ads? It seems like showing acceptable ads to everyone, not just people with an ad blocker, would be a much more long-term beneficial strategy.
So that's what
We need to hire this guy. Yeah, that's exactly what we explained to everyone when we launched the lead program. Just one website showing ads leads to worse for 10 other websites because the user gets the ad blocker and then it applies to all the websites that are users. So you have to do why do
there's some JavaScript code that says if they have an ad blocker, display an acceptable ad, and if they don't, then display an unacceptable ad. Why does it even do that?
No, the industry, to be fair, the industry doesn't, I mean, the industry doesn't look at it that way. These are, again, these are very sensitive users. These are the most sensitive online users. They just happen to be very tech savvy as well. So, I mean, you know, so that, you know, I'm in the advertising business, so I wouldn't say that everything else is unacceptable or intrusive. It's just,
It's also network targeting too. That's like if somebody's working on Symantec and they're doing research and there's certain blockers that's network level that they can't see. Especially
Because that blockers that you're offering them, that you can set up those lists, the open source lists that we have. I can actually drop them into my Netgear router.
especially for B2B security servers.
Actually, we've got something called LSC, large scale deployments. I was trying to roll that out. And you, as David was just explaining, the filter list that we wrote is for can run as all the devices, including routers, so you can apply ad blocking to entire digital enterprise devices.
Some of the public schools use that program.
But that's,
That's limited, so it goes, you can actually separate the list. You may not block ads, but you can block certain type of content, like in porn or other content.
but I think what Dave really asks is more from a philosophical standpoint, right, as a practice to be adopted, you know, almost like a total Allah that everyone needs to deal by. Unfortunately, we don't have that in the advertising industry, right? And that's why we need to have ad blockers and
Link program, we create the coalition for better ads. So, I mean, what we can do is inform and educate everyone that this is the right experience. If you provide this to users, not resort to such methods. But, you know, there's a lot of revenue, $100 billion industry. That's writing behind it, so there's a lot of motivation.
Sometimes what gets the attention is the flashing, I am Bob, I sell the best cars, right?
So I'll give you an example, right? So we did this in that format, in that we put a limit on animation to 15 seconds. We cannot do more animation than that. Because that's what we calculated, like that's the right way, anything over that goes, there's a higher rate, will slow down the page and everything. And you need to start the animation after the page is loaded. Because then again, you're blocking, the JavaScript is on page, you're blocking scripts.
And
So I get emails like this. This is just one example. Like, can I run a 20-second animation? I'm like, no, it's like 15 seconds. And I get a reply to that. Can I run a 10-second animation twice? I said, no, you cannot go beyond 15 seconds. And then the person again replies like the same thread, like, oh, can I loop my 15 seconds? I said, no, that's what we said very clearly. No looping, max 15 seconds, do whatever you want within 15 second window.
Can I put in one of my own pixels at the bottom of the Well, any publisher, any publisher has an ad server. Most likely it's either double-click, seismic, alternative, whoever. When you get ads that show, okay, here's ads that we're trying to do a buy with, it shows what your CPM, CPC, whatever it is, and you can see the ad, you can test the ad, and you can see where you want it on your website, it'll help target it. That's like the bottleneck, being able to say, no, yes, no.
And the other thing here is like we are a great organization, so we are not an enforcement body. We can provide guidance, we can provide recommendations, we can do the education and rally companies and try to convince them. But somebody like Adblock can actually do the enforcement.
We're the enforcement body.
Google, Chrome can do the enforcement like they
I
do.
just, Chrome gotta say, publishers are not going to do the enforcement on this. No. And even publishers who want to help are not going to do the enforcement. We do not, you guys don't have the time to do it, we sure as heck don't have the time to do that.
I have a question, this I do not work on Facebook as well, it just basically blocks, is it only publishers or it is within word guns as well?
We do.
It's an arms race there.
Yeah, we do, yes. We're actually, go Google that up. This is a really hysterical arms race between Facebook and AdBlock. What they've done effectively, and they have every right to do this because it is their private world and you don't have to join. It's not like a public infrastructure like the internet. It's a private world.
Yeah, it's a locked-in experience.
But what they've, remember when I told you that adblocking is really easy? It's just this little browser extension that says, hey, anything that's tagged in ad, block it. Don't even fetch it in the first place. So I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but not very. And so what happened with Facebook is they started to then go, oh, well then the easy fix is we won't tag it as an ad. We'll tag it as something else. We'll disguise it in something. We'll hide it. Now, there are some ethical questions around that because blind users and stuff like that have certain browser settings that rely on those tags being accurate and fair and correct when rendering the page. So that's, and then there was some workarounds that we came up with, that actually that our open source community came up with. You have to understand where we're coming from now. We've been downloaded a billion times, and we've got these active, 200 million monthly active uniques, right? And they're a pretty feisty bunch, and when they think that we are sort of sitting complacently at our desks while Facebook does some new thing, they raise hell with us, and they go, what are you guys doing about this, right? So, we're now in this position where we need to respond, right, to this community that we cultivated and that we educated and that we empowered, and now they're going, hey guys, we've given you this power, but now you damn well better use it. So it's, again, it's not that we're sort of ideologically opposed or trying to shut anybody down or trying to make anybody's life difficult, but to actually today's philosophical question, I won't answer the philosophical answer. Every healthy ecosystem in nature has tension built in, right? There's winners and there's losers, and there's a stasis that is formed, there's an equilibrium that is formed. And so philosophically, we're just trying to take this equilibrium that had put user experience absolutely in last place and was all about, sort of the advertising world and monetizing, making a lot of money. And we just sort of said, okay, we're going to reset that equilibrium. There needs to be an equilibrium, like in any healthy, thriving ecosystem, but we're going to recalibrate that equilibrium, and we're going to place it here and make it more friendly to the user. So philosophically, that's how I would answer your question. And then I'm really getting the eagle eye now, so we're going to wrap this up. If anybody here wants to contribute to the Acceptable Ads Committee, this is a part of your time. If you want to contribute to this community that's making these decisions, let me know. And with that, thank you, Tim, Shirley,